Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the royalty change that is happening on June 10th of 2025 for Amazon KDP. Now guys, I've been selling an online business for over 10 years now, so I've been through this similar situation many times over on different platforms. What I'm going to share with you in this video is the different patterns that I see of how people react to these changes, how you should react to this change so you can actually make more money from it in the end, and then some of the tips and warnings that I have when things like this happen, what you should do or what you should know going forward. Now guys, this video is one of those unique videos that I have a ton of information to share with you, so I'm just going to jam pack it kind of rapid fire with a bunch of valuable bits of info, and as usual, I'm going to switch you over to my own computer. We'll walk through a lot of these examples on screen recording. All right, guys, sit back, relax. This is going to be a really helpful video. Let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so switching over to the computer here, the very first thing that we have to cover is what is Amazon changing and why are they making this change? So specifically what Amazon is changing is they are lowering our royalty rate, which is essentially the profit margin that we get on every book sale. Now, what they are doing is they are lowering it from 60% down to 50%. So at first glance, this just looks like a 10% pay cut. There's actually a little bit more to it. I'll explain that as we get into it. But essentially, they're doing that on all paperback and hardcover books that are priced under $9.99. To be clear, if you have your book priced at $9.99 or higher, you are not going to be affected by this change. Now, guys, all of that is happening starting on June 10th of 2025 going forward. So now that we know what Amazon is changing, now let's talk about why they are changing it. Now, one of the biggest patterns I have seen over the years of companies making changes like this, where basically they are getting more, the seller is getting less, everyone's first reaction is that the company is being greedy. What I can tell you from being through these situations many times before is that it's not Amazon being greedy at all. What's basically happening here is that Amazon, they've not changed their royalty rate since they've started Amazon KDP, which was almost 20 years ago. If you just look at some charts as to how much things have gotten more expensive in the last 20 years, look at the median home sales price. In 2005, 20 years ago, that was in the 200,000s. Now it's in the 400,000s. And this was just 2023. We're already in 2025, so you know this number has still gone up. As you scroll through all of these lists, this is just rent. You've got 694, you've got 1,400. This is doubled. This is the same for every chart that we look at here. Well, what about Amazon's cost to run the entire KDP department? How has that changed from 2005 to 2025? Now, obviously, we don't know Amazon's numbers behind the scenes, but as we can probably guess, that number has increased over the last 2 decades. So the very simple explanation of what this change is it's allowing Amazon to keep the doors open for the entire KDP department. I think the part that so many new sellers for KDP don't realize is that yes, Amazon is printing the books, but they're also shipping them out to the customer. They're also handling all the customer service, and they have the accounting to pay us out as sellers. These are all different parts of the process that Amazon has to pay people to run. So it's not just the cost of printing the book on a machine, but it's all those other costs added up as well. So with that being said, hopefully now we're all on the same page as to what is changing for Amazon KDP and why Amazon has to make this change. But now let's get into the fun part in this video and share the actual strategy I'm going to be using going forward and kind of the tips and the warnings that I can share with you from being through this situation before. All right, so there are 2 big parts to this strategy. The first is going to be the price of the books. So for this, I'm going to show you in real time with the royalty calculator. This is from Amazon KDP. This tool will show you exactly how big your profit margin is going to be on a specific book before the change and after the change. If you don't know how to get to this page, I'll put a link to it down in the description below so you can do this for your own books. So I'm going to go through here and enter one of my average books and we'll use it as an example. So paperback, black and white interior with white paper, trim size in inches. It is actually going to be 6 by 9 inches on the .com marketplace. That's the US marketplace for Amazon. 110 pages and then the list price of $7.99. Then just go ahead and click on submit. And this is going to give us all of the information we need before and after the change. So very quickly here, before the change, this is how this works. So in the .com marketplace, this is listed at $7.99. Of that, we are going to get a 60% royalty. So we are actually going to get 60% of that sale. However, we also have to pay for printing. So $2.32 to print that book. And then we are left with our true profit margin here, which is $2.47. That's how much we receive at the end of the day on each book sale. Now, once this change goes into effect, as you can see, it now says 50% instead of 60%. So once you run all those same numbers, we are going to be left with $1.68 in profit instead of the $2.47 in profit. Guys, this is where you can see that this is actually a very big difference. This is not just a 10% pay cut. If you take take this new profit margin compared to the old 60% profit margin, this is actually a 32% pay cut. That's significantly more than the 10% that this looks like at surface level. So that brings us into the price, which is the first part of the strategy as we were mentioning before. So the first step in my pricing strategy is going to be protecting my profit margin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my books by $1. So instead of $7.99, it's now going to be $8.99. If you click on submit, you are going to see that this just saved my profit margin. Not all of it, but it saved a substantial amount of it. So just by increasing it by $1, we are now getting $2.18 instead of that $1.68. Just to do the same comparison of the percentage of price cut, previously it was a 32% price cut if we didn't change our price at all. Now it's only an 11% price cut. So we've just saved 20% of profit just by changing our book price by $1. So with that being said, this is going to be my first step in this strategy. Increasing the book prices slightly just to protect the profit margin, but then our ultimate goal is to get our price to where Amazon wants it. They are essentially telling us, if we read between the lines, that they want our book prices to be $9.99 or more. So I'll show you in the next step how we are going to do that. But I first want to show you what happens when you switch this to $9.99. So as you can see, we just switched it up $1 from $7.99 to $8.99, and it gave us a little bit more profit, 50 cents to be exact. But once we switch this to $9.99, just one more dollar, look at our profit over on the right side now. This now jumps all the way up. You're getting the full 60% instead of the 50%, and it's now $3.67. This now, instead of getting a pay cut of 11% or 32%, this is actually a pay increase by almost 150%. Now, I wanted to show you this before I show you the next part in the strategy of how to actually get to this, because as I was saying in the beginning of this video, if you follow the right strategy and you position yourself properly, you can actually make more money from Amazon making this change. So guys, stick with me here. Hopefully this pricing strategy makes sense so far. Now let's go back over to Amazon and I'll show you a real example. So the very first thing to understand here is that Amazon wants us to increase the price of our books. However, we can't just blindly go increasing the price of our books to $9.99 and assuming that everything's just going to go great. Now, strictly from a business perspective, the reason we can't do this is because of a concept called price sensitivity. Now, if you haven't heard of price sensitivity, it's basically in some categories of things, you can increase the price and people are still going to buy it. It means that it's very price flexible. However, in other categories of things, you have to be very careful increasing the price because they are very sensitive to price increases. If you increase that price, people may stop buying it. So when it comes to Amazon KDP, there's actually both of these. There's price flexible books and there's price sensitive books. I'll show you how to find the difference between them. So to show you a real example of this, since we're mainly talking about low and medium content books, if you type in a main just big category for low and medium content books, something like a logbook or a notebook, and you start to scroll through these results, you're going to see that there are a million different options that you can buy. There are a lot of people competing in this big general niche. So looking at this category here of logbooks, just general logbooks, this is something that is very price sensitive. You can't just go increasing your prices because other people are offering the same or similar thing for a cheaper price. So with that being said, how do you find the types of books that are then price flexible, where you can increase your price? Well, I can actually show you a perfect example here. So if instead of typing in a logbook, you type in something specific like a hunting logbook, and you start to look through these results, you're going to see that there are only a few matches. So you can see that this is the first one here. It's a hunting logbook priced at almost $17. And then you have a leather one, which is not going to be for everyone and obviously is going to be more expensive as well. As you start scrolling through just this first page here, you're going to see that it starts to get very off topic. So what this means for us is there are very few people competing in this specific niche. This gives us the opportunity to create something that is exactly what people are searching for, and then it is very price flexible because it will be one of only the few options for people to purchase. Now, coming full circle with this strategy, initially what we want to do is just protect our profit margin starting June 10th. No drastic changes, just increase our list price slightly in order to not lose that full 32% profit margin. And then we want to make sure that when we are creating new books on Amazon, we are finding all of these underserved, very low competition sub niches. If we can create books in those sub niches and they are among only a couple options for buyers to purchase, then we can ideally get our books to $9.99 or more. At the end of the day, if we do this, we are then getting the full 60% profit margin again. We're not affected by the change, and we're actually getting a bigger profit margin compared to that $7.99 we were starting with. Now guys, quickly before we finish up here, if you don't have a good process for finding all of these underserved niches, I will put a link to a video down in the description. It's a full tutorial that walks you through how to find these underserved niches and even how to create those books. It's a free video here on YouTube, so you don't have to pay to watch it or anything like that. And then if you have any specific questions about this video or that video, just let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to help you out. All right, guys, that is it for this video. I really do hope that you enjoyed it and it put your nerves at ease for this change on Amazon. There is a lot of upside here if you go into it with the right approach.